Hey everybody, and welcome to Chat with Kat. I'm coming to you with a pretty interesting story. I've been thinking a lot about one of the people that I met at the expo yesterday who spoke about the fact that after he was in his accident in Ossining, New York, that he needed to find a better environment that didn't have any obstacle of snow to make his life easier to get around. And that's when we kind of sparked a conversation about how living in Florida makes it a lot easier for us to, live our lives because we don't have to fight certain elements of weather that we did when we were growing up in New York. So, that brings me to today, where I went to the beach because it's a beautiful day outside and I wanted to get some fresh air. And, I get there and lo and behold, the mat was removed again. And I was like, what happened? And I look over and I see all these guys that are working. They're shoveling the sand and raking it and flattening the area and so forth. And then out of the corner of my eye, I noticed the mat rolled up. So I call one of them over. I ask them what's going on. He said we had to flatten the surface again because there's a lot of wind coming in from the ocean due to all the tropical storms that are kind of surpassing us. And he was like, don't worry though, we're gonna put the mat back as soon as we're done leveling the sand. I was like, okay, do you mind if I watch? I'm the advocate that put this mat here, and I would really appreciate it if I could, make sure that everything's okay. He was like, yeah, sure. So I'm watching them put it on. I wanted to take a video, but they weren't too keen with being on social media. So I'm sorry I don't have a video for you guys of it. So I sat there for maybe like 10-15 minutes watching them, and it was really cool because at one point I actually got to give some input, which reminded me of the quote, nothing about us without us, because they were actually going to put the mat kind of tilted on like the hill of sand that they had piled on the side. And I was like, no, it needs to be leveled and equal to the boardwalk, because otherwise it defeats the purpose and it makes it very hard for anyone with an assisted mobile device like a walker or a cane or a wheelchair, manual or power, to get around if it's on a hill slant like that. So I directed them to put it at a leveled surface, and they agreed. And when they were done placing it very nicely on the sand, they then had me do a test drive. And I did it, and it was very good. So I'm very happy about that. And that also brings me to another part of the expo. I ran into a friend of mine who has a great company that he runs called Echo Wheels, I think is the name, or Echo Ride. And that's ECO. So what it is, it's like this tank of a wheelchair that literally has tank wheels. Like, you know how in tanks they have like that chain that goes around the wheels? That's the kind of wheels that this wheelchair has. And it's so cool. It can go on any surface. It can go on sand. It can go on in the forest. It can go on any bumpy surface. It's an incredible device. And him and I were talking about it, and I was like, every beach should have this, because that would save a lot of time and effort of advocates trying to get beach mats placed, and I started to tell him about my struggle here in Sunny Isles to get beach mats placed because there's some pushback from the developers of hotels who, quote unquote, don't want riffraff at their beaches. And his eyes just bugged out of his head when I told him that this was what they had said. And he was like, that is newsworthy. That is national newsworthy. Like, you need to get CNN involved in this. And that's why I'm bringing this up. I'm going to tag CNN when I post this. Hopefully they'll see it and they'll maybe run a story on it, because we are now in the year 2024. The ADA is 33 years old, 34 years old, and that type of mentality is not going to be tolerated anymore by the disability community, which also brings me to the elections. We need to be mindful of who we vote for and make sure that they have everybody's best interest in mind, not just a select few. Inclusion is for everyone, and people with disabilities do make up the largest minority in this country with, I believe, 65 million people. So we need to be mindful of how everything affects people with disabilities. Even the environment affects us. As I mentioned, with a friend of mine having to move from a 4-season state to a tropical state just to be able to get around without there being snow on the ground. And myself, who advocates for beach access here in Florida so we can have people with disabilities enjoy the ocean the same way everyone else does that moves here and or comes to visit here. Because what's Florida without the beach? It's kind of the appeal, is to be able to go to the beach. So all that to say that we need more inclusion in society. We need more representation. And I did my part many years ago when I wrote The Adventures of Catgirl. I now run Catgirl and Friends, Inc., which is my beloved nonprofit that is made to educate children about inclusion through literature, through the books. So please go on my site, check out what it is that I do, learn a little bit more about me. And if you want, I would love if you bought a book. And just, it's the holiday season. It's a great gift to give to a child in your life and have them be both entertained and educated and go on an adventure of a lifetime with The Adventures of Catgirl. Or Pete the Private Eye, which is my other character that I write about, who's a blind detective, and he solves mysteries using his cane. Every chapter of that book is actually a new mystery that he solves. So you should definitely check out those books, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow when I have a new topic to discuss. Bye.